Hey everybody! So I don't have Josh here, but I do have Mike. Okay, so Mike, well, I don't even know how I would describe Michael to everyone. I mean, well, I don't know. Give me your background here, Mikey, in the board game world, and why on God's green earth would you be appearing on a Gray Fox Games official YouTube video?
Well, first of all, I am nobody important, but I have spent the last 5 or so years ago here at Gray Fox with Lance and Josh, and I am someone who helps out on the marketing side of things. So if you've communicated with us on Facebook, if you've messaged in on Instagram, I've probably chatted with you at some point. So they keep the trolls in the basement. Today we've let one out, but most of the time, I keep locked in the basement where I belong.
Yeah, and unlike most soulless company stooges, you're also an avid board gamer.
It's true.
Correct?
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, do I know of anybody that works in the board game industry that isn't like a hobbyist in the board game industry as well? I mean, I don't think
I think
there
it's
is.
hard. I think it would be hard to be because it's a very unique product, and like anything, right? Like you want to enjoy the topic that you work on, and I think board tabletop games in general, it's a lot easier for people to enjoy what they're doing for work as opposed to boy, you got to really like numbers if you're gonna be, if you're gonna really enjoy accounting, or for folks that like it's just a unique blend of things that are quote fun. I'm sure numbers are fun to some folks, and that's great. I think that number is smaller than the people who enjoy tabletop games.
Well, that's
So
me.
it's
Nothing brings me greater joy than when I really get a spreadsheet just hammered out at the end
right.
of the day.
That's right.
On the contrary, I have to through gritted teeth and kicking and screaming, I have to deal with many spreadsheets in the board game world. And when I get to close one out and never look at it again, it is a marked, like, I break out the kazoos and the party hats, if you will. But regardless, we're not here to talk about spreadsheets. We're here to talk about board game components and iconic board game components, things that make us like say, oh, it's like this. When I see this component, I think of this, or I think of like unique ones or whatever. And Mike and I are just going to kind of go back and forth and talk about ones and the histories of our board game lives and what we've found. And I'm going to go first because it's me, and I'm going to go first. But I'm going to go with just the classic meeple, the classic little wooden meeple that we've all seen. It's the same shape, well, predominantly, usually the same shape. Their chunky little legs, their chunky little arms, their little pyramid head that we've seen in so many different places. Or sometimes it's a circular head, but I mean, we've seen all the different variations. And I always just think of Carcassonne. Because, and I might be wrong, and somebody in the comments correct me if I am wrong, but I think Carcassonne was the very first game ever to have that little chunky little meeple. And I think Carcassonne, in a lot of ways, it is much maligned now, mostly because it's an older design, and it is a situation where maybe the framework of it is rather simplistic, laying tiles down, creating areas, then claiming them with the said meeple to collect points. But for many of us, Carcassonne was one of our very first forays into the board game universe. And also, I have extremely fond memories of playing Carcassonne for kids with both of my children. And it was even the simplified version of Carcassonne, even simplified even more. And sadly, like you mentioned Carcassonne to people now, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, I've seen it. People just don't play it anymore. You don't see it being busted out. I mean, and to be honest, I don't think I own a copy of it anymore. I think I ended up giving away most of not my kid one, like my kid's copy, because even though they're far too old for it now, I leave it there just for the memories that it gives me. But I don't know. Did you ever play Carcassonne, Mike?
I have played Carcassonne. I've played a couple of the expansions as well. And it's funny because So I started playing tabletop games probably around, oh, if I had to guess, probably like 2016-ish. And so I started playing other games first, and like some of the classics like Carcassonne and um, oh my, wow, my brain just blanked. Settlers of Catan.
There
I
you go.
didn't, I did not actually play those until probably a couple years later. Like I did not have what I would call the typical intro to tabletop gaming that I think a lot of that same path that a lot of folks had. I didn't play those till much later, and I don't. There's no reason for that. There was nothing that was intentional about it. It was just one of those things that kind of happened. But I have played both of them, and you know what? I think especially for what they are, I think they're fine games.
I think, I mean, before we jump to your first one, I just want to say, anybody who has never played, I think if you can track down and find a copy of Carcassonne the City, I think it's the
Yeah,
best version of
agreed.
Carcassonne. That's my humble opinion. All right, but anyway, lay it on me. What's your first one?
So the first one, and it's kind of funny because the component itself is unremarkable in the sense that the first one that comes to my mind is the tech tokens from Eclipse. And the reason why it's the tech tokens from Eclipse is because in the original version of Eclipse, all you had was this sheet that sat on the table, and you stack the tokens
Yes.
on that sheet. And literally, if someone breathed too hard, you'd knock all of it. First, you had to sort them all, and
Yeah.
then you had to stack them up in a way that please don't fall. And I just remember spending far too much time messing with those tech tokens. And Eclipse is a great game, right?
Yeah, it is.
But
If you got eight
but like
hours, whatever.
yeah, but it does take, and part of that 8 hours was those damn tactiles. So when I think of a component that really sticks out like that in this case, look, it's tongue in cheek, but um, I will probably always remember the original Eclipse tech tokens just because of the original. Just you had piles and piles, and it looked like a mountain of madness leading to nowhere. But in the end, by the time you were done playing, you knew where everything was. Like you didn't even have to
Yeah.
look, right? Like you just knew where that tile was, and you went and plucked it off the. So it's one of those things that sticks out in my head for sure.
I'd agree. And just to one, if only there was a game that provided a 4x space experience in an hour. If
Yes,
only. If only.
uh,
Maybe we'll talk about that later in this
that might
thing.
come up later. That
Yeah, it
might
might
come
come up
up later.
later. But I do remember playing Eclipse. I remember when it came out. I remember I that was back when I really had my own personal YouTube channel. I remember just being so excited to talk about that game. I remember I got it like right at the end of the year that it came out, and I remember punching out that video as quick as I could because I just it really was. It was just it had taken like 4x space that we played on our computers constantly, and it had put it into a board game world. And it's a fantastic game. It is a weekend though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you're in for the long haul.
And definitely buy the new version with the game trays and all that good stuff. It does make life a lot better with
Yes,
the new. Don't suffer through those stacks of tiles in the first edition.
very tough to track down a copy of that nowadays too.
I believe it.
Yeah. So all right. So my next one, and it's going to be kind of two pronged here. I'm going to talk about animeeples for a little bit. So I am old enough in the board game hobby when Agricola first came out. When Z-Man, so this is when Z-Man Games like published, and I can't remember the name of the original German company that made Agricola. But when Agricola first came out, it had this buzz. It had a buzz that was like just a swell of like, oh my gosh, it is you run a family. You're on a farm as a family in medieval Europe, and everybody was just, this is the most amazing game, and everybody was super excited to get a hold of it and play it and monkey around with it. And but I remember when Z-Man Games said we're bringing it over, we're doing the English translation. The first 2,000 people that pre-order it through me get a set of Animeeples. So instead of your pigs being pink cubes and your cows being brown cubes. You got a meeple that was shaped like an animal, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing!" Like the idea that we could have a shaped piece of wood instead of a square piece of wood that that showed the animal that it was representing. Um, I mean, it's hard to explain now with all of the deluxe versions of everything that you see, because manufacturing has come so as far as the options. It is hard to explain how the fervor, the excitement that people had over animal shaped pieces of wood. And it was so exciting. It was so important to people that there is a board game publisher that exists today that basically got their foothold. So Mayday Games was a board game publisher that was making a few games. Had a few games out there. Just like it was just kind of there as far as company goes. But they realized that if they contacted a manufacturing company and said, "Hey, we want you to make these. Could you make these animal shaped meeples for us?" And they got them made. They started selling components for other board games. That's like, so to this day, like, and I know that Mayday Games still exists, but they have a couple other different companies as well. But I mean, that was the beginning of I can go to a third party and buy mass produced upgrades for the games that I own. Whether it's coins, animeeples, pawns, whatever. And I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that like those little cow shaped uh, pieces of wood like started a whole section of the hobby back in 2008, 2009. I think was when Agricola came out. And I know Agricola is like one of your favorite games.
It actually is. Agricola at 2 players, if you've never played it, is a very tight, cutthroat game. I've had a lot of fun playing Agricola at 2 players. So and now the Animeebles are much more prominent than the first 2,000 copies. So I have all of the wooden animal. By the way, the publisher I think you were looking for was Lookout Games. Lookout Games.
Yes, you are correct.
The original, and I think the version that I have still has the Lookout Games logo on it. I'm not sure if the new versions do or not. But yeah, it at 2 players, when both players really know the game, it can be extraordinarily tight, extraordinarily competitive. It's a very, very fun game for it, and those are things that you don't really expect to hear about a game about farming. So
No.
it's kind of funny, but it's a very, very good game, even still to this day. And I think I just saw in my magic Googling ability, it was released at Spiel in 2007.
There you go.
Almost 20 years old, and honestly, it really holds up even still today.
Not to go to a rabbit hole, but have you played Caverna?
I have only a couple of times, and probably not enough to appreciate it. Like it took me a long time, I think, really and I don't want to say master, but really appreciate the nuance of Agricola. I've only played Caverna a couple of times. To me, a very different game. I think it has a little bit different of a feel to it, even though it's called like the successor to Agricola. I think it's a little different, and maybe it's only different because I haven't played it enough to really appreciate all of the different strategies within it, and I think that's probably been my hang up with it the first couple times I've played. I haven't really seen the matrix in it, so to speak. So
I always like Caverna. I always like Caverna better because I didn't have to build fences. So maybe Caverna's on simple mode, right?
The funny thing is, I think the issue that I had the first couple times that I played with Caverna was that there. I don't know if you remember, but you put donkeys into mines to help produce gems, which actually are a pretty iconic resource. Is the little red gems? It's actually in a bunch of games, but that's another good one. but uh, the strategy around utilizing those donkeys in the mines has been a runaway winner in both of the two games that I played. So I think that's probably been my um, hesitation with it. Is I know that there have to be other strategies to play the game, but I haven't uncovered them yet. So I have to play it at least one more time.
Fair enough. All right, your next one.
Probably the next one is one that a lot of people will recognize. It is the berries from Everdell, right?
Yes.
It was really
Squishy.
one of those. Yeah. The squish to them was something super unique in a world of wooden and plastic resources, right? Like so many games are just filled with hard, rigid bits. And these squishy berries were look. I don't know if the folks over at Everdell did it on purpose and like, hey, we're gonna make this thing that's super unique or if it just worked out that way. But I remember the squishy berries being the topic of more than one thread across tabletop at the time that it came out, and I have no doubt that it contributed to the success of the game. It's a great game anyway. But I have no doubt that the iconic berries helped just with that recall, right? Like, oh yeah, what was that game with the berries? I liked that one. And so I thought that not only was something unique and super cool, but it honestly, I think in the end helped really move that game forward and has put it in a great place in the hobby.
Yeah, and I mean, Everdell is one of those games that whenever he's like, you want to play Everdell? And I'm always reminded that I'm horrible at it. And I'm always just like, because it always seems like everybody seems to get their engine going way better than mine. Like, I never get cards that have synergy. And it's another one of those games where, like, on somebody's turn, they do, like, 27 cool things. And on my turn, I'm like, well, I'm going to move one berry from you. Yeah,
I'm gonna take twigs. Yeah,
I'm going to take twigs. This is great. I'm glad I sat down to play this. I'm losing horribly again. Yeah, and then like the one game I thought I was doing well, somebody had all these end of game scoring bonuses that just blew me out of the water. So, not that winning is the only reason you play. It's just nice to win every once in a while. All right, so I'm like staying with all these older games, but that's fine. I'm gonna name another older one, and this one may or may not be on people's radar still or not. Galaxy Trucker. Back in the day, when it first came out, it had two components that I thought were amazing. It had these squat little tiny astronauts that you got to put on your board, and they were cute as heck. But they also had these like green energon cubes that just they were see-through, but like they were plastic, but they looked otherworldly. And I remember like collecting those and just having those. I mean, people like had they showed off all these cool pictures of just setting up those little green cubes, and I think they elevated in like deluxe versions later. Instead of being cubes anymore, they actually went to being like little for lack of it, like little pill capsules. And then the people showed that they kept them in pill capsules and stuff like that. And you know, Galaxy Trucker is a game that people either love or hate. There's no middle. I have a friend that he would refuse to play because he hated the fact that like this thing that he took time to create, the game would then destroy, and he despised that. And then I've had people that love it because they actually live with they actually make it the whole way without just like two pieces of their ship still surviving the rest of the trip, and then just through grim determination, just with luck, hoping an asteroid doesn't hit their main pod the rest of the way. And that's a game where you just have to laugh as you get blown up, and laugh at the absurdity of the whole entire thing. And in a lot of ways, I think it is a game that put Czech game CGE on the map too. I mean,
and actually,
yeah,
that's one I haven't played.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's because just brief overview. Like the very first part of the game is you set out all these tiles that you can't see, and you turn them over, and you determine whether or not, because the idea is that you're a Galaxy Trucker, and you just have this pile of remnant ship components, and you turn them over, and you look and see if it's anything good, and then you have a sheet that you have to put the tiles down, and you have to build a spaceship. And you can't you and there's very specific rules. You have to have one hand behind your back. You pick up a tile, so you can't use two hands, and then you put the tile down if you don't want it, and you can only pick with the one tile. And you have a certain amount of time. And then if you're the first person that gets done with your ship, you get extra points. So there isn't like just take your time and pick your parts, that kind of thing. And then the journey from point A to point B goes, and it's a randomly selected thing of cards. So it's like, oh, it's a UFO that tries to blow you up. It's deadly asteroid storm that tries to blow you up, and then and you see if you make it, and it's fabulous. But the components of it were just super cool. And again, this is a game that was super old, when everybody was used to wooden sticks, wooden cubes, and nothing else that looked cool. And Czech Games went out and said, you know what? We're gonna put some cool stuff in here. We're not gonna have a cube for an asteroid. We're not gonna have a green cube for our energy. We're gonna put cool little bits inside of it. And now it's nothing, right? It's like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. But for the time, it was like, oh my gosh, look at the stuff that's in here. This is amazing.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's it. Galaxy Trucker and their astronauts and their energy cubes.
Let's see here. The third one is going to be another one that I think a lot of people will probably recognize, and because they look like a candy, and that is the tiles from Azul.
Yes.
Don't bite those; you will lose a tooth. But like the tiles from Azul, Azul, another one that I played probably a little after most people probably played it. But when I the third in the line of Azuls, the third one that came out, I forget exactly what the name is, but I think it refers to gardens in some way. Is another one of sort of a sneaky, really good strategy game. It doesn't feel like it because it doesn't have some of those familiar mechanics to it, but it is very. You can make that game pretty strategic and pretty cutthroat, and it's a lot of fun. But like the original Azul square tiles, I think are one of those where if you've ever played Azul, you can't see those patterned, those pattern floors or those pattern out in the world, right, and not think of Azul. It's just your brain is forever changed after you've played it. So no, I think
it's brilliant game too. It's absolutely brilliant. It's one of those games that's like, why couldn't we have published that kind of thing? Just so everybody knows, in case you're wondering, Azul is actually means the color blue, and it's based on like the white and blue ceramic tiles that like I believe the Moors were known for making during the time period that it was. And you've seen those tiles that have like the tiles in the game, right? I mean, they have all, but that's and I was like, I drive by a strip mall near my house nearly every day, and it's the Azul strip mall. And whenever I see it, I'm always like, hey, it's the board game. And I was just like, no, it's
the weed's blue this time.
Yeah, but no, I agree. Those tiles, they look like little like you should be able to unwrap them, right?
Yep.
And like chew on them or whatever.
Yep.
It's kind of like, if you know the game, Old Citadels that was published by Fantasy Flight Games, the gold were these like butterscotch candies. I mean, they literally, if you take the time to look it up, they look like little discs of butterscotch candies, which I always thought that it was like, oh, I want to eat these, but no, don't eat them.
Yeah, don't. It will hurt. It will hurt a lot.
All right, so my final one, and I mean, it's a little self-serving, but we referenced it earlier. I mean, for me, I'm very proud of the work that we did with Last Light. I think Last Light is people like have their favorite games that we published: Deception, Champions of Midgard, After the Empire. Even like Run Fight or Die is still like a game that we sell what copies of Run Fight or Die. But for me, I mean, Last Light is really, for me, like the best game in my opinion that we published. It's a game that I still play a lot, and it isn't to say I don't play those other games, but I mean obviously I've played those games a ton, and I've kind of grown not bored of them, but my familiarity is too great. But I'm a big confrontation type board gamer. I like conflict in games. I like, I win by beating you, not like we race to see who does the best. And so Last Light gives me that, but it gives me a 4x space game experience in less than an hour, or an hour and 15 if you're playing with 8 players. But I mean, when we first were saying we need to make this game, Roy Canaday, the designer, actually had made little lollipop planets for his prototype, and we were like, those are amazing. We got to make sure that we do that with this. Yeah. And we were, and it's one of those things, and for people to understand, like, we went through so many iterations of that, of like, how are they going to look, how are they going to stand without being knocked over when people are like just bumping a table or moving something over, as far as, and it is still a game that when you set it up on a table, or we set it up at a demo booth, or we're at a convention and we show people, it's a thing that when people walk by, they'll stop and they'll turn and they'll look and they'll say, oh my gosh, what is this? And then you get to explain the facets of Last Light and why it's awesome. The planets will always be like the thing that makes, and the fact that like no two game there, because like you make the same bouncy ball or lollipop using the same colors, but the swirls and everything are different. When you buy your game, it's a unique game, and
unique,
yeah. So I mean, yes, it's a little bit of a commercial for Gray Fox Games, but you can't get away from the fact that like that is something I think we've definitely made something that is unique, that you just don't see in anything else that gets published.
It's a component that when you see it from across the room, you have to go find out what that is. Whether you've heard of Last Light or not, it's one of those, when you spot it from across the aisle or whatever it is, you're compelled to go find out what that is. And I think that's really the heart of what we were trying to get after here. Well, yeah. My last one is actually from Merchants of the Dark Road.
Ooh,
and
it was a deep cut.
It's a very enjoyable game. Unfortunately, the company had some problems and is no longer around. But the lanterns that came with the deluxe version of Merchants of Dark Road were really cool. It's cool enough that obviously, working in tabletop and being exposed to a bunch of different board games, I can look at most components and figure out, how did they do that? Like the lanterns were very unique, and they were unique enough where I looked at like, how did they get all this detail in here, right? Like, because it looks like a lantern that's being lit up. It's not just like a single colored plastic piece.
Yeah.
So you really have to like look at it to figure out how they made it. It's one of those again, like when you see the component and you go, oh wow, that's something pretty like the detail in that is tremendous. And so when I think of a very unique component, I think of those lanterns for Merchants of the Dark Road.
And you hit it exactly. It doesn't have an LED light in it or anything like that. But when you look at it,
it looks like it does.
It looks like it is something that is glowing, that is on the board. And I agree, it is. I mean, yes. Shout out to Elf Creek Games. Shout out to Brent and Mike that ran Elf Creek Games. I understand. My understanding is that that Merchants of the Dark Road did get picked up by another company. So I mean, if there is future like expansions, whatever of that, I mean, pay attention to that and keep an eye out. But and in my opinion, Merchants is an underrated gem. I mean, it is definitely a very unique game experience and a fabulous game. So
if memory serves, it came out like during some of those, I call them the weird years, right? With the pandemic and everything going on, and like the conventions weren't really back up to what they had been, and obviously for good reason. But an unfortunate casualty of that was some really great games that got released into that in that 2020 to 2022 window, where maybe they didn't get the attention that they would have otherwise gotten. And Merchants is, I agree with you, an underappreciated and underknown, honestly, really cool game with some really cool and unique mechanics, and obviously, as we talk about here, some fantastic components.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, and here's where we say, it's like, hey, if you watch this, thank you first of all for taking the time to watch it. We really do appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to the Gray Fox Games YouTube channel, we strongly suggest you do. This is where you'll find videos like this, but also when we have exciting news about new releases, about new games, about things that are going on within the company, this is one of the places where you'll hear about that. I'd also strongly suggest joining our Discord channel. There will be a link to that below as well that you can click on if you want. And that's also a great place where you can join in on our playtests. You can hear about our brand new games, and it's just also a fun little place to hang out. But the big thing is that like hit the old subscribe, hit the old that little bell button or whatever. So when we do these videos, you'll hear about it. And I would love to hear from you about what your favorite components are, and which components are like supremely unique to you, or that you think just really take the gameplay of the game to another level just because of a component that's within the box that you just opened up. Mike, any last words?
Nope. I think the troll has had enough sunlight for today. He'll go back in the basement now.
Well, I appreciate that, and get to work on those spreadsheets too.
That's right.